Hello and welcome to So Strategic. Josh Delgado here, and I'm excited to continue our 30 days toward building seven-figure mindsets in your business. So what we're going to talk about today is something that I'm really passionate about. It's prioritization, right? You can see here, and I'm going to tell you why I'm wearing a suede blazer as I'm recording this video for you today. And it ties into something that I'm really passionate about. It's controlling your calendar. It's making sure that you're prioritizing the right things at the right times and getting the right things done the way that you need to, right? So if you're trying to build a seven-figure business, this is a really important skill. And actually, I believe that this ties in very nicely to the execution strategy that we've been slowly building over the past few days. So when you think about prioritization, it's all about really one component: understanding what is the most important thing at any given time. Now, I want to share with you something here, and I'm going to show this to you. I don't know if it's going to fully translate. I want to show you the way that I operate my calendar. Okay, you can see here, everything is very color coordinated, and it's slammed. Like, this is my day starting at 5 a.m. this morning, going up until 11 o'clock tonight when I go to bed. I put everything in my calendar. I haven't always been like that. All right. Prioritization for me for a long time was actually a very difficult thing. It was very difficult for me to not just kind of fly by the seat of my pants, to not be spontaneous, and to actually take control of my calendar. Because I felt like, man, when I do that, when I'm having to put everything in the calendar, when I'm having to cross-reference my calendar with my wife's, it just feels inauthentic, and it feels like I'm just like, everything is more, machine-like and robotic. But what I realized is when I just flew by the seat of my pants, suddenly everything kind of just was out of order, right? Everything was not really actually happening. I wasn't actually able to follow through on the things that I believed I wanted to, that I had committed to. I wasn't as punctual, all these kinds of things. And I realized that this was an area that I needed to grow. I needed to grow in my ability to be a better prioritizer. So when you think about prioritization, and I mentioned, I'm wearing my suede blazer today that my wife got me for Christmas. Why am I wearing this? All right. I am going to a daddy-daughter ball with my two girls tonight, and I'm super excited about it. But for me to be able to go to this thing this afternoon / this evening, right, I had to get ready first thing this morning. So I had to have the foresight to realize, okay, if I've got this thing at 6 o'clock tonight with my two daughters that I want to be at, but I've got meetings that don't end until 5:30 p.m. and they start at 10 or whatever time this in the morning, and I don't have but one 30-minute gap in the whole day to really eat lunch, check email, do all the other stuff that I have to do, because today is one of my big days to meet with all of my executives in my company, all the staff that are leading a component of our company. How do I do that? How do I make sure that I'm prioritizing my kids and the time that I've committed to them without suddenly importing a whole series of frantic 30 minutes as I prepare to get ready, as I'm frantically having to go take a shower and, redo myself and change myself into now dad. The reality is I'm dad all the time, right? So I've got no problem coming into my meetings wearing my nice little suede blazer, because this is what I've prioritized today, right? I've prioritized this time that I'm going to have with my kids, and simultaneously by prioritizing that first, it allowed me to then be fully present in every single meeting that I've had throughout the day, bring the fullness of myself into that, because I'm already prepared for what I'm going to have this afternoon. So when we start thinking about prioritization, one thing that is honestly, it's a little bit alarming that this happens, is most people don't actually have a list of their priorities, right? So for me, I'll just share briefly kind of how my priority structure in life works, right? I always prioritize my faith, right? For me, that's a non-negotiable. That's the number one thing, my relationship with the Lord. Okay. Next, I prioritize my relationship with my wife, right? I got to make sure that I'm actually in a good place with my wife. And I would actually say making sure that I'm healthy would actually go right above that, because I got to be the best version of myself so that I can make sure that I'm the best version of myself that my wife needs to be fully present for her. Then I've got my kids, who are kind of on the sides of where my wife would be, because I give them the fullness of myself in a different way than I do with my wife. And then I've got my family, and then I've got, my work and my career and all that kind of stuff. And slowly it just filters on from there. And ultimately, when you start to look at how you prioritize all of those things, right, prioritizing the way that your life actually functions is going to determine how you prioritize each and every workday. And once you get your general life priorities in order, right? And that's something that don't take that lightly, okay? You have to understand what your priorities are in life, because your priorities in life are going to dictate everything that you do beyond that, right? So don't sleep on that, okay? Take some time, jot, a list down of your priorities and the way that you structure those things. So once again, for me, it's my faith, right? It's my care for myself so that I can make sure that I'm actually caring for my wife and my kids the right way. That would be like in that next tier there. And that's like my upper echelon there. And then it's my immediate family beyond that, right? Would be in that kind of that next tier. And then all of my family, right? Then it comes my career. Then it comes the things that I'm building in business and all that kind of stuff. And then, depending on what we're doing at any given time, there's a lot of friendships that kind of come and go, right? So friendships will kind of be depending on the level of friendship that'll be in there in those tiers as well. And so ultimately, you got to know what those priorities are for yourself. So that way, when you start getting into this next thing now, which is prioritization within your business, within your strategy, within the way that you're marketing and selling and positioning your products, hiring staff, all that kind of stuff, you have to make sure that you are cross-referencing that to your overall life priorities. Okay. Now, I've got one saying that I always say. You might be thinking when I say this that this feels a little bit intense. I believe this to be true. Okay. You can only prioritize one thing at one time. So this idea that you can have multiple priorities at one time, I don't actually believe that's true. Now, you might not agree with that. That's perfectly okay. In my experience, that's been the case. I can have one thing that I'm focusing on at one time. There's a lot of studies that talk about the ability to multitask with certain kinds of like intellectual things, and how it's just really not possible to split your brain to think about multiple things at any given time. It's one thing to be like reading something while you're eating a bowl of cereal. It's another thing to be splitting your brain on high level mental tasks that you're trying to take in and process at the same time. And so ultimately, when you're prioritizing within building of a company, right, building of an execution strategy, building of the way that you're distributing a product or a service, you have to make sure that you have a singular priority at any given time. So if you're a solopreneur, right, that means that you can't be chasing multiple products at the same time unless you have built that in to the way that your system works. So you still probably have like a tier one product. You have like your, maybe your upsell or your downsell. Like there's different ways around that, but ultimately you have some kind of priority within your processes. Okay. Now, what I like to think about next is when you're prioritizing, you have to know where your pivot points are, right? So I just talked about upsells. I talked about downsells. I talked about kind of like ancillary product sales, all that kind of stuff. Understand what those products and not those products, but understand what those points are for you and know how to move from each of those things seamlessly. Know when to upsell, know when to downsell, know when to pivot to a different product that you have. But you come in still with a singular priority, a singular solution that you're trying to solve for your ideal customers, right? With your product and your service. And so when you start thinking about prioritization, there's something that's really cool that it actually allows you to multiply priorities. And we're going to talk about that next. So the nice thing about actually being able to create leverage in your business is going back to that previous example as the solopreneur, right? The solopreneur, your ability to create leverage is a little bit more limited on a very direct basis, right? So what I mean by that is, as a solopreneur, you might have to be the one that goes and sells the product. You might have to be the one that, is selling this product and is also selling this service, and is also, providing this level of customer support, and is also doing the billing, and also doing the, whatever else the list, right, that needs to go on the list. You're probably doing almost everything within your business as a solopreneur. The great thing about it, as you start to scale that company, and this is often where you see a company in that 250 to 500 range really making the jump, because as a solopreneur, you can get to 500K, and it's not that difficult to do depending on the specific market that you're in, right? But when you start to scale, now you have to start thinking about creating leverage. We've talked about this in multiple of our videos so far, in multiple of these conversations, because my whole philosophy, right, is how to create leverage in life through business. So how do you use a business to create leverage in your life? Which means you buy back your time, which means you're not a slave to your business. You actually get to enjoy the life that you are building a business to live. So When you're creating leverage as an entrepreneur, what you get to do is you actually get to now hire a staff. So you get key employees on your team that then you assign priorities, right? And so if you think about your initial priority list in your business, you've got priority number 1, number 2, number 3, number 4, number 5, number 6, all the way down the list. You can only focus on priority 1 when priority 1's there. Once you check that off the list, number 2 slides up to number 1, and now we got a new number 1. So you're only focusing on that number 1 priority typically at any given time if you're doing it successfully. But when you hire a staff, especially with key employees that are talented and skilled at what they can do, suddenly you can delegate 1, number 2, number 3, number 4, and for each of those employees, now they've got their own priority list. So this employee over here, employee 1 has a 1 through 4, employee 2 has a 1 through 4, 3 has a 1 through 4, 4 has a 1 through 4, and suddenly you can get a list, right? You can get 4 priorities within your business worked on at any given time if you have 4 key employees, not to mention yourself. So technically you can get 5 things done at any given time. So when you're trying to create leverage, right, you want to be able to move beyond yourself as fast as you can when building your business. So you have to make sure that you are growing as a leader as quickly as you can from the day you start building a business. You want to prioritize growing as a leader. Now, if you go back to my list, right, it was my faith, right? My faith was number 1 for me. And then it was prioritizing myself and my own health was next. Right? It's the whole airplane thing, right? Put your oxygen mask on first before you help those around you, because you got to make sure that you're not passed out on the plane before you try to help the people around you, okay? It's the same thing in your business. Make sure that you're actually taking care of yourself and growing as a leader from the start of building a business. So that way, by the time you're ready to scale, you're ready to hire, you're ready to bring on those next people to create this sense of leverage in your business, now you are equipped as a leader to sustain them, to grow them, to properly delegate to the people that you're hiring and equipping, right? And simultaneously able to hold them accountable to the things that you're giving them to do. So if you can do this, suddenly you're creating a multiplication effect in your business. We talked in previous conversations about hitting the J curve, right? When you're hitting that J curve in your business, that means suddenly the foundational pieces that you've been building begin to take off. And it's like you're going up that hockey stick, right? That is the power of leverage, when you can get people on a team that are skilled, right? Not just random people, because if you just get random people that aren't skilled and aren't qualified to help you in these specific areas, it's just going to lead to a bunch of other issues that I think you can kind of get the hint. It's not going to work out for you super, super well. I've been on that side of the coin as well, where we've hired the wrong people and tried to get them to do the wrong things. Okay, that's not a great process. Learn from my mistakes. Vet the people that you have and make sure that they're the right people for the job. Okay, they could be great people. That doesn't mean they're the right people for the job. But as you're starting to create this sense of leverage in your business, what you do is now you are able to create multiplication and duplicate the effects of your work, of your prioritization faster. This prioritization ultimately starts and ends with you. Okay, I'll go back to what I was sharing a while ago, right? I'll just share it again. It starts with this, right? It starts with your calendar. It starts with managing your time and ensuring that the things that you're spending your time, your effort, your attention on are actually the most impactful use of your time. This is one of the biggest traps of most entrepreneurs, is that they don't focus enough, right? We talked about that before. Focus, follow one course until successful. Go watch that video if you haven't heard me talk about that yet. But ultimately, when you're prioritizing, suddenly your execution strategy, right, which is how we're tying this all together, the execution strategy that you're building is all based on the priorities that you've set forth in your business. So it might be hiring, right? It might be the sales process. It might be the servicing elements of your business. Whatever those components are, every part of your execution strategy has to run through the lens of your prioritization, which should be following our focus framework of follow one course until successful. If you can do that, then suddenly you're going to be creating leverage in your business. You're going to allow yourself to be freed up so you don't have to spend so much time in all of the weeds and all the details, right? You can work on the business and not in the business. And ultimately, life's a lot more fun when you can do that. You're going to be a lot less stressed out when you can do that. The likelihood of you stepping into that top 9% of entrepreneurs and small businesses that actually reach $1 million in your business is going to go significantly up. And the likelihood of you being in that 91% that never reach $1 million is going to go significantly down. So I just want to encourage you, focus on mapping out your priorities, right? Think personal first, because all your business priorities have to go through that lens, but then think business wise. What are your priorities in your business? Is it scaling a specific arm of your company? Is it scaling a specific product? Is it understanding your customer better? Is it providing better customer support? Whatever that is for you in your business, whatever the speed bump is that you're not able to cross right now, figure out what that is, cross-reference it, and figure out a game plan of adjusting your prioritization to get you on track to hit 7 figures in your business.